Alrighty, good morning and welcome to your first lesson. So, we're going to be starting with percentages. Now, percentages are quite straightforward, made up of two different ideas. We have per, meaning part, and then we have cent, like cents, which means 100. And so what we're talking about is things that we use that are related to parts of 100. And that's all a percentage is. It's just a way of measuring something compared to 100. Where 100 is the whole thing, 50% is half of the thing, 0% is none of the thing. 200%, well, that would be twice the thing, because it's 2 times 100%. So this is the idea of a percentage. So what we want to be doing in this first lesson is just learning how to convert from things that aren't percentages into things that are percentages. And so there's 3 things we want to be able to tackle by the end of this. First one is fractions. Second one is parts. And the third one is going to be decimals. Now, the wonderful thing about this is that since they all have to do with parts of 100, they're all going to have something to do with 100. So the conversion for each of these to percentages is going to look something like this. So to convert between a fraction to a percentage, all you have to do is, if the fraction is a over b, is take the fraction and multiply it by 100. And so you're literally going to be able to go a divided by b times 100. So that's how you're going to do that. For a part, well, a part is a of b. Well, you're going to do the exact same thing, a over b times 100%. And that's going to convert it. And the third one is a decimal. If your decimal is d, you take that decimal and you times it by 100%. And you look at all of these 3 and you say, so essentially we're doing the same thing 3 times. Yep, and that's exactly right. So let's do it. So if I have the fraction 6 over, let's make it 6 over 35. Well, if I want to convert that from a fraction to a decimal, I just multiply it by 100%. And then I can just type this into my calculator. So this is a great first use of a calculator to do this. In general maths, we always have access to a calculator, so there's no reason not to use it. Alrighty, and in this case, we're going to get some horrible decimals. We get 17.142857, and I'm just going to round it there. And that's probably too many decimal places, so instead we're just going to do a quick rounding and say I want this to the nearest 2 decimal places. I'm going to get 17.14%. All right, and for all of these, we're going to just round to 2 decimal places for each of the percentages. So imagine we know that for the parts, let's have a look at the parts. Imagine we've got 30 of, say, 95, and we don't know what percentage 30 is as compared to 95. Well, we go 30 out of 90 times 100%. And that's going to be equal to whatever our decimal is. Once again, into your calculator. And in this particular case, we're going to get 31.5789. I'll go to 4 decimal places for the minute. And then when I round it, you'll notice that to 31.5. And then the 7's going to round up because the next digit's an 8. In the previous one, we rounded down because the next digit was a 2. And in this case, we're going to be rounding up. So we're going to get 31.58%. Lucky last one is D for decimals. If my decimal is 0.85, well, I just multiply that by 100%. And in this case, we're going to get equal to 85%. Or if you want to keep those lovely decimal points in, we could call it 85.00%. But I'll leave that up to you which one you want to have a go at. Alrighty, before we go, I'm just going to have a look at what slightly harder ones for each of these. So for fractions, that's a simple fraction, right? Because it's just a over b, 6 over 35, 6 out of 35, right? But what about a more complicated one? What if we had 3 and 2/5? Well, your calculator actually does have a button to deal with mixed fractions, but a lot of people tend to have a bit of trouble with it. My suggestion is to do this instead. We're going to do this times 100%, but the problem is if you just type in 2 over 5 using your calculator, it's actually going to get you the wrong answer because the calculator assumes that the symbol in between these two is actually times, but we don't want it to be times. So there's a few ways we can fix it up. So if we've got 3 2/5 and we want to turn that into percentage, well, we're going to do this, but the way we're going to type it into our calculator is a bit different. If you're very clever, you might see the mixed fraction key button, but otherwise, I would just do this. 3 plus 2/5 in brackets times 100%. Good use of your calculator if you can find all of those buttons that'll allow you to do that. And for 2/5, if you can't find the fraction button, you can just use division. So 3 plus 2 divided by 5, all in brackets, times 100%. And in this case, we're going to get something bigger than 100%. Or in fact, going to get 340%. Alrighty, let's look at a different one. What if we had 90 of 38? Oh, let's do something more fun. Let's do 90 out of 40. Okay? What percentage is 90 of 40? Well, 40 is the smaller number, so 90 is actually bigger than 40, so it should get a bigger thing. And that's exactly what's going to happen. 90 out of 40 times 100%. And in this case, we're going to get 225%. And the last one for a more complicated decimal, the best I could come up with is let's do pi, 3.14. If that's our decimal, well, to convert that to a percentage, we just multiply by 100%, and we get 314%, and we're done. Alrighty, so that's just a quick introduction on how to convert between fractions, parts, and decimals into percentages. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.